Tax fraud, tax evasion, emissions evasion. Everybody in California is probably going to jail. So as of recently, I don't know if you guys have heard, in the wonderful state of California where I sadly reside, they have started cracking down more on Montana LLCs. Now, if you're new to the car scene, essentially what this means is people will open an LLC, which is essentially a business in Montana, register their vehicles there because Montana doesn't have sales tax or emissions. So essentially, if you buy a $300,000 Lamborghini, but you buy it out of your Montana LLC in Montana, you don't have to pay the $30,000 in sales tax that you would if you bought it as a normal civilian or person in California. And obviously, California isn't going to let that slide. And they've been talking about it for years, about cracking down on it, but apparently they're trying to figure out a better way to crack down on it more because they want their money. And what that means is if they do figure it out, a lot of these people are going to have to pay back taxes on their vehicles over the last couple years of ownership. So some people might be hit with $20, $30, $50, $100,000 fines in back taxes to pay for all of the fees that they dodged. Now, what does this mean for normal people like you and I? Well, I do have a couple vehicles registered in my super legit business in Montana. If anybody is watching, they are actually all in Montana right now. Wish I could show you the cars, but they're not here. But I didn't do any supercars. I didn't do it for tax reasons or anything like that. I did it because, well, I obviously have a super legit business over there, but also they're modified vehicles. One of them being my Super, which currently is non-op right now anyways, and the other one being my Mustang, which is being prepped for a race coming up on Saturday. So once that is all squared away, I'll have it shipped back out here so we can go to the racetrack. But yeah, what does that mean? Have I felt any of these experiences on myself? Yes, and we will get into that. I actually just went to court 2 days ago to deal with a fraudulent registration ticket that I got while on my motorcycle. So I have the facts. I've already experienced it. They are aware of what's going on, but not all of them. So let's talk about it. First of all, just to reiterate, why would you want to do this? Essentially, there's three main reasons. I would say two main reasons. To dodge taxes and fees and to dodge emissions. Sometimes both, depending on the vehicle. Now, for me, like I said, it's mainly because of the emissions thing. California is really strict on emissions. I have been state reffed here a handful of times. Once I registered my vehicles out of state and would go pick them up and drive them into state legally, once I started doing that, I didn't get messed with. I have yet to really got a exhaust ticket on one of my cars. Actually, the Super I did while it was a Montana car, but it didn't matter. It was just whatever. Well, who cares? It's a modified exhaust ticket, not a state ref. I could give a shit about that. However, February 22nd of 2025, I got a ticket on my motorcycle for fraudulent registration and modified exhaust, and it's a Montana registered vehicle. So what happened, Drew? Did they take you in cuffs? Did they throw you in jail? Did you drop the soap? None of that. I didn't do any of that. They gave me a ticket, and they did say it was a misdemeanor, which is actually like a criminal offense. So that's kind of crazy that they're classifying it as a criminal offense. But essentially, my court date was 2 days ago, and I showed up and nothing was there. They did not file or process the ticket as of the making of this video. Now, I don't know, I will knock on wood, I don't know if they still have time. Technically, I've heard a few people say, oh, well, they have like up to 6 months where they could file the ticket. Sometimes they have up to, 3 months. I have yet to receive anything in the mail regarding the ticket. Nobody can find the ticket in their system. No one at the courts can find the ticket. But essentially on the ticket, it said it was a $180 fine. And that was for both the modified exhaust and the fraudulent registration. Now, hypothetically, if they did process it, what would I have done? Well, I would have hired a private, legal team like F Your Ticket to go and handle it for me. And it probably would have gotten tossed out because I don't know if they can really prove what they want to prove. I know they know why people do it, but I don't know if they can prove without a reasonable doubt if that's the case. But they're gonna try, and that's what they're gonna start implementing on public highways. So the issue with it right now is they can't prove that I didn't bring the bike or the car in over the weekend. I didn't drive it out here on my own rig and transport it into the state. It doesn't matter if I have a California ID because it's registered under a business. It's essentially like a semi truck. You can drive a semi truck across country or county lines or state lines and not have an issue because it's a work vehicle. That's essentially what all of these vehicles are. They are work vehicles. Typically, when I get pulled over and they ask why I have a Montana registration, I usually say I own a shop out there, and I go around the country, like to Texas, to Nevada, to Arizona, to California, to all different car shows to show off my work. That's essentially what I say. And it's not necessarily wrong. I do have a shop out there, and I do go around the country to show off my work. I do all those things. But I think that's why they know that they can't necessarily do a lot of cracking down on it just yet. But they did say they have plans to fix that. Essentially, what their plan is they are going to implement plate readers and other surveillance techniques to identify vehicles that are inside the state on our public highways, on California public highways, for an extended period of time. So essentially, you know those toll road readers that will just like read you every time you get into the toll road? Imagine one of those when you enter the highway, and they can detect when you get on the highway, how often you're on the highway. They can maybe detect when you leave the highway. They might know your exact route depending on how crazy and extra they get with these cameras. But there is still a giant loophole with all of this. There's still a giant loophole that California needs to figure out. And here it goes. A car registered out of state must stay out of state for the first 12 months. That's it. That is the law. The car can go into California after the first 12 months. So theoretically, my bike did not pass that because it's only been in California for about 12 months as of now, maybe 13 months. But at the point of the ticket, it might have only been 11 or 10 months. So what a lot of people do is they buy a vehicle, they save $30, $40, $50,000 on taxes. They actually ship the vehicle to Montana, park it there for a year in some sort of storage or facility. I'm sure there's businesses that take in these vehicles. And then after a year, they are free to drive into California or wherever they want. That is the legal, correct way, squeaky clean way of doing it. But if you buy a vehicle and you are caught within 3 months of driving it in California, then they're throwing the book at you. You are cooked. I still think this really wouldn't hold up in court because there is no way they can't expect people, especially people that might be well off. Imagine you actually do live in Montana. Imagine you actually do own a legit business in Montana. Imagine you actually buy a Montana plated Lamborghini and you want to go on a West Coast road trip and then you get a ticket for registration fraud. I mean, I guess if you have a Montana ID or driver's license, that would throw that out the window, but you see what I'm saying here? What I think they should do is, yes, obviously for supercar owners, they want their money. When we're talking about $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 in taxes, they're not going to let that slide. I think it's pretty dumb when they pull over a $10,000 bike and expect to get like a paycheck out of that. Like, you guys ain't getting more than like $100, like what are we talking about here? But I do think they're not going to let up on at least supercar owners because those are fat paychecks. And imagine if they gave the police officers commission for finding vehicles with excessive back taxes like that. That would be absolutely insane, man. Everybody with a supercar would be cooked in California. But what I do feel like California could and should do hypothetically, if they are so money hungry like we know they are, is for maybe modified vehicles or certain vehicles that might meet a certain criteria, whether they're older than a certain date, or again, maybe you just want to modify your vehicle after it's like 10 years old, or even 5 years old after that first grace period of smog is gone. Because if I'm correct, you don't have to smog a brand new vehicle for 5 years. I might be wrong. It might be 5 or 8. Again, correct me down below. But I feel like they should just allow you to register the vehicle as a certain type of vehicle where, yes, you might pay a little bit more in registration fees, but you don't have to smog the vehicle. Because we all know all of that stuff isn't about smog in the environment. It's all about money. California just wants money. And if we can give them more money, I'm sure they would love to take it. They could even implement like a maximum mileage for any of these modified vehicles. maybe something like 7,000 miles. So it's still reasonable, but like you can't daily drive this every day. 7,000 miles is plenty though to drive in a year, as long as it's not your dedicated daily driver. And then if anything, if you just drive more than that, they just tax you a little bit more. But I feel like if they wanted to make it so people could modify their vehicles and enjoy their stuff with their own money and support the economy and get their own little cha-ching out of it, then this would be the way to go. Now, I'm not no politician. I don't know nothing about that. This shit 100% will not pass. What they're going to do is crack down on Montana people, get their money that way, crack down on emissions, get their money that way, and pay police people to do it the whole time. Going forward, I mean, I don't see necessarily, unless you are buying a supercar tomorrow, how this would affect most people. Like I said, my vehicles have been registered in Montana for 3+ years now, except for my motorcycle. So I'm not really worried about it. I think if you have a supercar that you drive around a lot with a Montana plate, then maybe be worried. But let's be real, there's probably like one guy watching this video in that circumstance. But it's just all the more reasons to leave California. Now, I am looking outside on a beautiful sunny day, so it is very tempting to stay. But I don't know. Eventually, if this gets really bad, we might have to dip. I know there's a bill to implement, you got to pay to use highways and stuff like that. I honestly wouldn't be surprised. Imagine 20 cents a mile on a highway. Oh my God. There'd be a revolution. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Is anything going to come from this? Are they going to crack down? Are they not? Comment your thoughts down below. Subscribe. And until next video, peace.